Hey, how's it going, all you web developers out there? In today's video, we're going to create this model right here, actually a custom model, using only HTML, CSS, and of course JavaScript. So if you're excited for this video, then please click that thumbs up button in order to help this video get some traction. Okay, so let's see how the project looks and what we're actually going to go through in order to create this custom model. Okay, so we're going to start by creating a simple button, and if we click on it, then the model will appear. Of course, we're going to use a couple of animations. So this is pretty similar to how a Bootstrap model looks actually. I did inspire myself a bit from a Bootstrap model. So in order to create this, we're going to use custom buttons that we're going to create in CSS. Actually, I used Sass to write the code for this, but as you know, then it compiles to regular CSS and I'm only going to write the regular CSS. Now you will find the entire code down in the description below, as always, on my blog page. But if you wish for me to create this using Sass in the future, then please leave a comment in the comment section below with a created using Sass. So when we, as I said, when we click on the button, we're going to get our model to appear. It's going to have a bit of an animation. Then we have three options. Now these three options are click events that are in the HTML, in the generated HTML. So the functions that are actually in the generated HTML are going to look to either close the model, decline the model, or accept the model. But if we click on accept, then a new model will appear. So we're actually creating two models, and we can either go back to the initial model. This actually deletes the first model and creates deletes the second model and creates the first model back, or we can accept and close up this model, and then we're going to be sent to a new page. Hey, like this video if you like. Okay, so I think this being said, we can jump into the project. But before we do, please subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because we post videos like this on a regular basis, actually on a weekly basis right now. So please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and hit that notification bell in order to get notified wherever I post new videos like this. So let's get into the project. Okay, so let me just hit a refresh on our finished project. And let's just open it up in Visual Studio Code. So just create a folder, open it up in Visual Studio Code. You can call it model or wherever you wish. So let's create here a index.html file. Now let's start with a boilerplate. Let's link up our future CSS. So link style.css, CSS, and also a future JavaScript file. So script, and I'm going to call this modal.js. Okay, let's create our CSS file, style.css, and also a JavaScript file. Hey, where'd you go? Modal.js. Okay, we got everything working here. Let's open up using live server, and there we go, empty page. I'm going to also open up the console because we are going to use it later on. So not source, console. There we go. And let's see JavaScript console log. Let's just type in here a log to verify that we're linked up, and there we go. There's a console. I don't need you, sir. Go away. Boom. Okay, so first things first, let's go back into our HTML. Let's give this a title, custom modal. Down in our body, we're going to create an h1. I'm going to use really often Emmet here. So I'm going to create an h1 with title custom modal. Close it up, hit enter. Underneath our h1, actually, you know what? I'm going to wrap everything into a container. So class container. I'm going to move this up here, our h1. After h1, let's create a button, and this is going to say click me. Okay, so let's go into our project. There we go. We have a button, we have our custom model. Now we do have it in a container class, so let me style this a bit. This is going to be actually exactly as a Bootstrap style. So let's go into CSS, and first of all, let's do a reset. Let's do a complete page reset. Let's reset our margins, set them to 0, reset our paddings, set them to 0, and of course everything will be a border box, a box sizing of border box. Okay. Now I'm also going to use a Roboto font on this from Google Fonts. So let's go to Google Fonts and I'm going to use Roboto. So click on Roboto, get, I use the 400 style. So click get style, import, because I'm going to import it into the CSS, import it right after I reset, and then also select the font family of Roboto Sans Serif. Go down here, get the body tag, and boom. We should have now Roboto, yay! Okay, next up, let's style our containers. So I'm going to grab onto our container, and I'm going to set our width to 1000 pixels. I'm going to set our max width to 100%. Let's set a padding of, let's say, 0 top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right. And then a margin of top and bottom 0 and left and right auto. So I'm going to push everything to the middle. And let's also set the text align to the center. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to also increase our H1 a bit. So let's do a H1 with a font size of 5 rem. And then a margin to the top and bottom of 5 rem. So I'm going to push it down and then left and right auto. Okay, so we have margin to our button now and also to the top. Now we do have a button, so let's also style this button. I'm going to use a regular style for buttons, actually the style that I always use. So in this case, let's create a btn class. So exactly as in Bootstrap, we have a general btn class, a general button class, and then we're going to extend it to, let's say, success, a danger, and so on and so on button, which we're going to have the same style as the initial button, but different background colors and different color for the text. Okay, so let's do a display for the button as inline block. Then we're going to increase the font size to 500. We're going to set the line height to 1.5. The initial text color is going to be, well, a pretty much darker color, so I'm going to use a 212529 hexadecimal color. There's the text align will always be in the center. The text decoration will be none. So if I have an anchor tag in there, it's not going to show. I'm going to set the vertical alignment to middle. And let's also set the cursor to pointer. Now we're not done yet because I want the user select, basically when it's selected, user select to be none. And the background color, this is very important, the initial background color is going to be transparent. Because this is going to be regulated from whatever second class I'm going to give it, so whatever extension class I'm going to give it. Now, these are the basic stylings. Everything else I'm just going to copy in and just go over it. I don't want this video to be extremely long. I much rather concentrate on the JavaScript part for this. So I'm going to set the border to 1 pixel, solid, transparent. I'm going to take up the border later on from our extension classes. We're going to have padding to top and bottom 0.375 and then left and right 75. Now 0.75. Font size is going to be 1 rem, border radius going to be 0.25 rem. This is going to mean there's going to be have just a bit of border radius. And then we're going to use transitions for different things. So for example, for color, for background color, for border color, and box shadow. Okay, and also going to give it a bit of a box shadow of 5 pixels, 1 pixel, and a dark color, and then a 0.3 alpha. Okay. Now, as I said, I'm going to also extend this. So if we have a class of btn-success, is normally a red color, then I'm going to use, and just going to copy this in, a background color of hexadecimal, bum, 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 bum. Then, as I said, the code is down in the description below, so this is not the important part. What is much more important is actually understanding the logic behind the JavaScript, so how we're going to insert this in our DOM. Then we're going to have a cancel color a close color or close class, and then two more things. So when I'm targeting my button, and it's in an active state. Active means when we click on it. Then I want to have it transform of scale of 0.98. So only when I click on it. And also to have a box shadow of none. So when it's clicked, it's going to have an effect as if it would be pressed in. Okay. Now when I'm hovering over my buttons, I want it to have an opacity of 0.9. Okay. And that's basically it. So let's see now how a button looks if we also assign it those classes. So go back to HTML, let's say class btn, so the first class, and then btn, let's say success. And now we're going to get this green button. Yay. And you can see if I click on it, the shadow disappears and also it scales down just a tinge. So we're done with this part. Now let's create our model. So it doesn't actually matter where you insert a model, but for styling purposes, because first of all, I'm going to create it, style it, and then delete it from our HTML. So I'm going to create it within our HTML. So the model is going to be, first of all, wrapped into a modal class. Then it's going to have a modal container, so another class of modal-container. After that, we're going to have the modal content, which is basically, I'll just show you. The modal content is the header, the body, and the footer. Okay, so these three are going to be in the header, in the modal content. This is the content of the modal. So let's do this. Class of modal content. And as I said, it's going to include a modal dash header plus a modal. So these are all classes. Don't forget to put the dot in there. Class of modal header, then class of modal dash body plus another class of modal dash footer. Okay. So if I hit enter, I'm going to get within the model content these three divs. Now the modal header, let me go back to our finished project. I'm going to close up our font also. The modal header is going to contain the text and then the button, the closing button on the right side. So this is actually a span tag. So after text, which is first of all modal title, it's just going to be a text. And then a span tag, span, and within here we're going to just have an X, but I'm going to convert this into a class. I'm going to give the sorry about that. I'm going to give the span tag a class of btn and btn dash close. Okay, so if I do this, then I can see anything. Ah, there we go. There's a modal title and the closing button, which is already styled because we already have styled our button. Now for the modal body, down here, I'm just going to create a lorem ipsum. That's it. Now for our footer, you saw in our finished project we had two buttons. So let's insert them using a button tag, button with the class of btn and btn dash close. And it's going to be no, actually not close, it's going to be, I use something else here, cancel. So we're going to use the cancel class, and after that we're going to have another button tag with a class of btn and btn dash success. And it's going to be accept. Okay, so let's see. There we go. We have our two buttons, we have a text, we have everything. Now we still need to style our model. So let's go back to CSS. And let's style the general class of modal first of all. Modal And now the model is going to, let me show you this. So as you can see, it's up here, kind of in the center of the page. And also if I make this smaller, so it's completely responsive, it's going to stay there. Now and also we can click the background. So I'm going to position this absolute. So position absolute. Then we're going to position it to the top, 0%, and left, 0%. Now this class is not actually the model itself, but it's everything that you see here. It's the entire viewport. So this right here, this is only the container. It's not the model itself. As you can always see, it is placed up here. So what we need to do now is display it also as block. We're going to set its box size into border box. And we're going to place it over the entire content. So let's do a Z index of 1000. Now I wanted to have the entire height of the viewport. So I'm going to set it to 100 viewport heights. And I'm going to set the overflow for, first of all, for the x-axis. So overflow x-axis as hidden. But for the y-axis, overflow y-axis, I'm going to set it as auto. Now, I don't want to have any kind of outline, so I'm going to set it as 0. And I'm also going to give it a background color of a RGBA. And let's set the alpha to 0.2. And this is going to make a gray color as an overlay over everything. So I can't click the click me button anymore, because we have this set index as of 1000. So it's over everything, over our entire content. Now, as you saw in our finished project, when it comes in, it has a bit of an animation effect. So let's create that animation by creating an animation. And let's also go outside and create our animation using a keyframe. Let's say we're going to call this fade in. Now this is going to be a pretty simple animation. So it's going to start at 0% with a opacity of 0, and it's going to end at 100% with a opacity of 1. So let's use our animation here. Fade, our keyframe, fade in, is going to take 0.3 seconds and is going to have the effect of ease. Okay, now let's continue on and style our model container. So let's grab onto the class of model dash container. We're going to position it now relative within our model. Position relative. We're going to set its max width to 500 pixels. Set its margins to 1.75 rem, top and bottom, and auto left and right. I'm also going to give the box shadow of 0, 0, 15 pixels, 2 pixels, and RGBA of 0.2. There we go. Okay, next up, let's take care of a model content. So this is going to be model dash content. We're going to position this also relative. We're going to display it as flex. We're going to set the flex direction as a column. So if you take a look at our finished project, this is the flex direction in a column, not in a row. The width is going to be 100%. We're going to have no pointer event, so set the pointer event to none. Let's give it a background color of a FFF hexadecimal color and a background clip to, actually we don't need this, a border radius of 0.3 rem. Okay, and let's also take out the outline. Outline, none. Okay, so there's a container. Now the rest of the code I'm going to copy because you only need the header, the body. So let's do first of all the header. I'm going to go over it. So header display flex, again, as you can see, the flex direction is now in the column because it's set automatically to column. The flex shrink is set to 0. The alignment of the items is center. Justify content is space between. So we're going to have space between our elements. So between our title and between the button. We're going to have a padding top or bottom of 1 and left and right of also 1 rem. And this could actually be changed to 1 and 1. So border to the bottom, going to have a bit of a border. You can see right here of 1 pixel solid and a hexadecimal color of gray. Then a bit of a background color which is lit darker. Going to have some calculations to the top left and top right border radius, because up here and up here we have a border radius, but down here we don't have anymore. Okay, so let me also check. I think I forgot the width. So width, I was going to take out 100%. Sorry about that. And now it's set to the center. Okay, so for the modal class, the general modal class. Okay, next up, let's move on to our body. And again, pretty simple. Just going to set it as position relative. Going to give it a bit of a padding all around, line height of 1, and also the flex is going to set to 1, 1, and auto. Now, the last one is going to be our modal footer, which is going to be displayed as flex. We're going to set it as flex wrap. Flex shrink is going to be set to 0. The alignment of the items will be centered, and we're going to justify the content to the flex end, so the buttons are going to be at the end of our flex here. Alright, so that's basically it for the entire styling. Now let's move on to some logic. So I'm going to comment out this console log, and first of all I'm going to grab onto our body tag. Now let's use a const and assign the body by grabbing onto the document dot query selector, and we're going to grab onto the body tag. So the idea here is that when we click on, let's go to our finished project. When we click on this button, our modal should appear. Now, how can we do this? Well, we're going to launch it through a function. So I'm going to create a function. Now, there are more than one ways to do this. We could either grab onto that button in our JavaScript, which is also an option, but I'm going to do something else. I'm going to first of all create a function of launch modal, so launch modal, and I'm just going to console log, let's say our body. Okay, so this body tag right here. Now, how can we assign this function to the button without grabbing onto the button in the DOM? We could actually assign it in our HTML. So if I would go here, there's a button, there's a button. Right after class, I'm going to say on click. So I'm not going to use get button and then add an event listener. I'm going to use the function right within here. So on click, we're going to use the function of launch modal, and let's see what will happen. So let's go into the console, and first of all, you know what, I'm going to comment out our modal. So let's make this smaller and comment it out. So let's see what happens if I click on my button. Hey, just console logged up entire body. Pretty cool. Okay, so this means that when I click on the button in our HTML, JavaScript is going to execute this function. Pretty cool. Now let's create an element. So this means that I have access to my body tag, and this also means that I could insert elements into our body. Now for this, we need to create first of all an element. So let's use a let keyword and let variable, and let's create modal. So I'm going to assign it to a document dot create element, and we're going to create a modal tag. There are no such tags in HTML, but we can create one. We can just create one. Now the actual creation of the model, I'm going to use a function here. So when the button is clicked, the element will be created, and for this we're going to call upon a function. Let's call it create modal. Okay, and this function is going to take in another function which is actually creating the element itself. So let's type in here modal, and it's also a function. So this function is going to launch this function. So let's create our modal function. Going to go outside of this function, and let's say here, let's type in a comment of create modal, and I'm just going to assign it to a const of modal. I'm going to use here a arrow function, and the only thing that this is going to return, we can actually don't need this. I'm just going to return between backticks. So let's do backticks or element. Now this is pretty simple. I already have created it here, so I'm going to go back to HTML, to our HTML file, copy it and paste it in here, and that's all we need to do. So when a button will be clicked, then an element will be created, and then a function will be called, which is going to call upon this arrow function is going to create this element. Now let's create this function, because this create modal function does not exist. So let's go into here, let's say create modal, and as you can see, this function is going to take in an argument in other functions. So let's say that this is going to be pass in modal. Now I'm doing this because this function, this create modal, can create whatever modal is going to be passed in here. And as you saw in our finished project, we do have two modals. Okay, so first one being the initial modal, and then the next one. So let's go back to our code. When something is passed in here, then the create modal dot in HTML is going to be assigned to whatever is going to be passed in this function. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now after that, you're going to grab onto our body, because this function, so we have our body up here in a global scope, and now we're going to append as a child the created modal. Okay, so basically now if I click on click me, then we have a problem. Launch modal is not defined. Oh yeah, because I use the same notation. So create modal func, let's say, and you are also the create modal func. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is basically the function, this is the function, and this is the element that is created. So now if we click on click me, there we go, our modal has been created. So we have created our modal. Now we need to close our modal somehow. Let's go back, and we're going to go right after our modal, and let's say close modal function. Now when we're closing our modal, we're not actually closing it, it's not staying in our DOM, we're actually removing it from our DOM. So let's create a function. Let's go ahead and create a const. I'm going to call this remove modal. I'm going to use an arrow function again, so let's assign this to an arrow function. And first of all, let me show you something. So this function is going to be called upon when we wish to close an element. So again, we need a click event. So we're going to close our modal from either this button, and also our accept button. But it's a bit different, the accept button. Now, first of all, let's go to the closing button up here. Now we can actually insert here a function. Let's say that we can actually listen for an event within this button. So again, on click, going to listen for this remove modal function. And let's say when this happens, then do a console log of the string of close. So let's see what would happen if we create a model and click on the X button. Well, nothing happens. And why is this? It's a pretty simple explanation for this. And it has to do something with the scope. In this case, in the first case, the element exists within the DOM. And when we click on it, the element does not disappear. It stays within the DOM. So its scope, because it didn't grab onto the button, I can actually close the CSS, because it didn't grab onto the button, the scope is still global. Now in this case, it's not global. So what we can do, but there's a bit of a difference between selecting something from the DOM and using a click event within the element. Let me show you what the difference is. If I type in here the event, I want to log now my event. Now if I open this up and click on it, undefined. Now why is this undefined? Why is the event of undefined? Well, because it is now in the shadow DOM. So in order to have access to this, I need to use the this keyword. Now this refers to this right here. So now if I console log this and the event, yay, there's a button, okay? If I would have grabbed onto the button within the DOM, so if I would have done something like, I think I need to give it an ID. ID, that's great. This is the easy way. ID of close. And then I would say, when I click on this button, then I'm going to create a const of close btn, then document query selector. So let's get back to the project. We wanted to remove the modal, and we said that we can only access this button, this span button, if we had the this keyword in our function. Now, let me also show you something. I could access this without having the this keyword, but I would need to create a const and grab onto the element itself. So I would give it a ID of close. Okay, so give it a ID of close, and we can grab onto this ID. What this means is that when const, let's call this close btn, we're going to go into the document dot query selector, and we're going to select the ID of close. Okay, so basically let's also console log it. Boom and boom. So two things should happen. First of all, if I go now back to the project, open up our model, click on close, two things happen. First of all, the event is now unidentified because he doesn't know where it exists. But because I selected the button, now it's giving me the button. Okay, so I could target this way, but I don't want to do this because this is specifically to this modal. Still don't know how to pronounce it correctly. So it's specifically to this model. That means if I would create the next one, it also must have an ID and so far and so on. So that is why it's better to use event listener and to listen to the event targeted on this specific model. So let's go back. I'm going to leave it actually in here, and I'm going to use the this keyword, and also going to so it's this, and I'm also going to leave the ID in here so you can have it in your code. Then, so let's continue on. What do I want to do? Let me check my notes. So we got. Oh yeah, we want to remove the element. So we got the event. Now, let me also show you what happens when now I got the event. Now if I click on this, the span, the button itself is selected. Now I want, throughout clicking this button, to remove the entire model. So I can now navigate out and navigate up the DOM with using, for example, a parent element. Parent element of this event. So if I click now on my close button, that is selecting the div. Now we have to navigate up until we get the model itself. So it's going to be parent, 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 parent. I'm going to show you what it is actually. So I'm going to, exactly as I did here, const modal and assign it. So create a variable and assign the events parent, 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 parent is the fourth parent. I'm telling you because I already did it. So event.parent, and I'm going to copy the keyword parent and paste it in .parent .parent and .parent again. So I got now the parent element, which is the model itself, the model itself, and I can do like model.remove. Move element. Boom. What this means is if I click on it, then it's removing the model. Simple as that. Okay, and it's gone. Now there's another method. I'm actually going to comment this out. Because the model now exists, but it only works if I have the event listener in it. Because the model now exists, I could do something like const model and assign it to document.querySelector and going to select the only model that exists. Because if you think about it, only one model can exist per event. So model. Okay, so let me see what happens if I console log the model. If I click here, and there we go, selecting the model. Okay, now let me also comment this out, and let's see if we take out. So basically I could do now model.remove, exactly the same thing, remove, and we're going to remove the model element, and it should, boom, remove it. Okay, now what would happen? You can see we don't no longer need the event. I will take out the event. If I click on it, it still works. And also, if I remove the this keyword from our function and click on it, it still works because we are now selecting from the DOM the created model, and we're selecting it after we have created it. So it works, as you can see. We don't need this keyword. And also, if we create another model, it should work. So I'm going to comment this out. We have the model, we can remove the model. So I could basically use this function right here. Boom, also on no. Not in the class, sorry about that, after the class. Paste it in here. So if I open up my model, what just happened? I have here too many spaces. Where's my button? Button. Class button. No. What is happening? Model. What? Okay, so I messed up here somewhere. Let me try this again. Boom. There we go. It closes, so I can now take the function on click. There we go. On click, go after the class, paste it in, and now it should work. Okay. So also, if I click on no to remove the model, it basically go back. Now we want to open a new model, so we need to create one actually. So I'm going to go after this model and copy the first one. I'm going to type in here comment of info model. So info model, paste this in and change the model to info. Info. Okay. So basically we don't need everything that is in the first model. So in the body, we're just going to copy in, replace the lorem ipsum with you have accepted the terms and conditions. For the title, I'm going to replace this with terms and conditions. Boom. And that's it for this. We don't need the accept button. Let me check the finished project. So we have accepted it and we need a close button. Okay. So we need our cancel button. What else do we need? We need our cancel button. We need our remove button. We don't need this ID right here. This was just for the previous example. We need our body. We need our footer. And within our footer, we have our button. Okay. So we could now call upon another model. So how can we call upon another model? Or where should we call upon the next model? Well, we should call upon it within this accept button. The accept button will now open another model. So this means that on click, we are going to execute again the function of launch model. Ooh. And again, we need this keyword within here in order for us to launch the next model. So let's click on it. Let's click on accept and another model just appeared. And as you can see, well, it appears, but only makes the screen darker. And actually, there are models overlapping now. So what we could do, so there's our info model. It still launches the same model, so we need to kind of create a condition. Let's condition this model that if the element.id, so we need to, the event.id, what am I doing? e.id is equal to accept, then accept is spelled with 2 C's and 1 E. Then we're going to create a new model again, but this time it's going to be the model info. And else if the ID of the event is back, then we're going to create the model. So the very first model. So we're going to pass in here model and this function. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that I'm using here this keyword. So if this button, because we can now call upon the event, okay, so if this button has the ID, I'm going to give it the ID of accept, then we're going to create the model info. Okay. Now also, if the event of another button has the ID of back, which is going to be this one, let's give it the ID of back, and we need here this keyword. So if the ID is back, then we're going to create the previous model. So the main model. Should have called it main model. Whatever. Okay, so let's try this out. So let's click on it. Let's click on accept. And we still have a problem. E is not defined. Wait just a second. The event, because I didn't pass the event within our remove. Boom. Accept. Oh, wait just a second. Still need in our launch. are still needed in our launch model. So if the event is accept, then create model is not defined. What? Launch model, event button, listen. Okay, so let me just console log here the string of yes. And so when I click on accept, okay, I'm getting yes, but create model is not a function. Create model is not a function. Why do you want to be a function? Oh, because it's create model function. Sorry about that. And boom, boom. So now it should work. Okay, click on accept. Yes, and there we go. There's the next model. Now if it is back, then it's closing the model. But that's not what we want. We actually want that if we click on back, then the second model should disappear and the first model should appear. So it's actually pretty simple. All we need to do is when we click on the back button, on the back button is not only going to remove the model, but it's also going to create another model. So before we even remove it, we're going to say launch model, and we're going to also pass in here this keyword, and we're going to do it this way. So two functions. We're first going to launch a model, and then we're going to remove the model. Okay? So let's see what happens now. Click me, accept, back, and it removed the model and it gave me the previous model again. So accept and back. Okay? So let's close. Ooh, we got a couple of them. So this means that it's not closing the first model. So we can go back now. And the problem is that we should remove the model before. We should first of all remove the model, then create the model. So let's try this out. Click me, accept. And it's on accept, we should also remove the very first model. So back is removing the model, and this is now closing model. So this means that we need to go to the accept button. We are launching a model, but we should also, after we launch the second model, we should delete the first model. So right here, remove modal, and we need this keyword. Okay, so let's try this out. Accept, it's removed, another model is created. If you click on back, then this is removed and the previous model is created. Okay, so all we need to do now is take care of this closing button, because this closing button will not only close the model, but launch a new page, not a new page, yeah, a new page actually. So let's type in here comment create new page. And it's pretty simple. We're going to create a function. We're going to call it, let's call it finish or new page, and we're going to grab onto the body dot inner HTML, and we're going to assign it using backticks. We're going to give this a div. So open and close a div with a class, of container. And within this class of container, we're going to have an h1. And we're actually going to copy it. It's much simpler this way. And with the font awesome of thumbs up, and I think I don't have font awesome. Oh yeah, we also should use this function. So new page, we need to launch it up here. In a second button. So after we're removing the model, we're going to also use our function of new page, and that's basically it. This should work. Okay, click me accept, close and like this video. Oh yeah, please like this video if you did like it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the project. So if you enjoyed the project, then please give it a thumbs up. If you did it, give it a thumbs down. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please consider subscribing and also clicking that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post new videos like this. So with this being said, oh, also if you have any kind of questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. Okay everyone, have a nice day, hope you enjoyed the project, and catch you next time. Bye bye.